Okay. So it looks like the TikTok is being banned, or at least not so much being banned, but the banning has reached the Supreme Court. And just to give you a very quick update, so I covered this in the past, but in case you're new here, essentially, the U.S. government has been wanting TikTok banned for like the longest time, and so when I looked into it, I looked at the various reasons, and some reasons were essentially it's a threat to national security because TikTok is owned by ByteDance, and ByteDance is of course somewhere it's based in China. And as you know, China and U.S. relations aren't exactly the best, even though businesses will do their business in China and get cheaper labor. But it is what it is. So, anyways, that happened. And actually, speaking of relations, I believe that the U.S. Treasury was believed to be hacked by China not too long ago as well. So put that together, and you get that. So, anyways, point is, they haven't been on the best of terms. So naturally, any app that is owned by China or owned by something in China, it's looked at very closely. And of course, if you've seen TikTok, well, there's a lot of cases that people would want to ban against it. A lot of people will say it's for the health of children. We don't want children being banned, or not being banned, but you want the children being exposed to this stuff. But my one counter argument is you should probably learn how to parent better. Okay, as much as you want this stuff banned, I say teach your kids how to actually navigate these apps properly, and of course use stuff like parental controls and different types of restrictions in order to make sure your kids are not doing that. But that's a different topic. But anyways, that's the sum. And so, in the last update, I believe I talked about they had a bit of a condition. Okay, they had to be bought out by like an American company or bought out by somewhere in America, or else they'd get banned. And that's the gist of it. But anyways, here I still have an article for you, just in case we're a little bit confused. So this is from the BBC, and it's asking exactly how would a TikTok ban work. And here it says online marketplaces such as app stores and web hosting platforms will have to stop making TikTok available to Americans if its ban goes ahead. Politicians have told Apple and Google bosses to be ready to pull TikTok from the App Store and Google Play Store for iOS and Android devices. Most people download apps onto their smartphone and tablets through App Store, so the app would stop new users from getting TikTok. It would also mean that people who already had the app would no longer be able to get future updates designed to improve security or fix bugs. The bill forbids applications controlled by U.S. adversary countries from being updated and maintained in the U.S. It gives broad powers to the president to limit apps with ties not only to China but also Russia, Iran, and North Korea. So as you can see here, essentially, if you already have the app downloaded in the U.S., if it gets banned, and if the Supreme Court, of course, chooses to want to get banned, they'll be like, well, anyone who has the app, you can't update it, so you don't get access to certain features. And if you want to download it, you cannot download it in the U.S. specifically, not other countries. And I believe that TikTok is also banned in India, which is also a very massive market. But we'll get to markets in a second. So now, in the case you're wondering, like, who wants to ban TikTok in the U.S. and why? Here he says, U.S. officials and lawmakers have accused ByteDance of being linked to the Chinese government. Many have cited national security concerns over the app, claiming that it could be forced by Beijing to hand over data about its 170 million U.S. users. The U.S. Justice Department has said that because of its Chinese parent company and access to data on the American users, TikTok possesses a national security threat of immense depth and scale. In April 2024, U.S. Congress passed a bill which Joe Biden signed into law, giving ByteDance 9 months to find a U.S.-approved buyer or see TikTok shut down across the U.S. TikTok and ByteDance deny being linked to the U.S. government or that any data would be handed over. They have also previously ruled out a sale. The firms have filed multiple legal challenges against the law, saying it's unconstitutional and would have a staggering impact on free speech by censoring its U.S. users. They have said that even a temporary ban in early 2025 would have devastating effects on their operations and users. So, even though we kind of regurgitated a little bit, what I really want you to pay attention to in that little excerpt is that 170 million U.S. users. To understand, okay, that's not just 170 people on its own. That's 170 people who could tell 170 people more. And I believe the U.S. population has about, I think, 336 million people in the U.S., I believe. And even if you've never even downloaded TikTok, naturally, you will, of course, have more stuff. And of course, I have a little graph here that says there's about 126 a million active users on TikTok as of 2024. Now, of course, these are stats, so they're not entirely accurate. But I do want to show you a little excerpt about like what some of these Congress hearings actually were, because you'll be a bit surprised of how, what's the word I'm looking for, out of touch it kind of sounds. So let's give it a listen.
So, Mr. Chu, if the CCP tells ByteDance to turn over all data that TikTok has collected inside the U.S., even within Project Texas, do they have to do so, according to Chinese law?
Congressman, first, I'm Singaporean.
That's fine, but there are employees of yours and ByteDance is in China.
We understand this concern. In my opening statement, we said we hear these concerns. We didn't try to avoid them or trivialize them. We built something where we take the data and put it out of reach. This is what we did. We put it out of reach.
Out of reach, but they own you.
No, we put it out of reach by storing them.
ByteDance owns TikTok. If ByteDance is and the CCP owns ByteDance, because the CCP owns everybody in China. So by law, they can make them do whatever they want, and they say that by law, you can't tell anyone about it. So they can make you hand over that data. Is that correct?
Data is stored here in American soil by an American company
you say that.
overseen by American.
We thought that, but leaked audio from 80 internal TikTok meetings shows that U.S. user data has been repeatedly accessed from China when you said it hasn't been.
Can you say with 100% certainty that TikTok does not use the phone's camera to determine whether the content that elicits a pupil dilation should be amplified by the algorithm? Can you tell me that?
We do not collect body, face, or voice data to identify our users. We do not.
You don't?
No, the only face data that you'll get, that we collect, is when you use the filters to have, say, sunglasses on your face. We need to know where your eyes are.
Why do you need to know what the eyes are if you're not seeing if they're dilated?
And that data is stored on your local device and deleted after use if you use it for facial. Again, we do not collect body, face, or voice data to identify our users.
Okay, so if you were like me and you heard that and you said, what the hell are they on about? And they are literally getting a lot of it wrong. Guess what? You're not the only one, because if you know how any technology works, that's not entirely how it is done. Of course, the CEO explained it, but I'll explain it to you guys, for you really understand. But essentially, every time, for example, you ever buy a new phone and you have to put in your information all over again, well, that's because your device itself stores data. It stores data about you on the device. And so Apple or Google or Android, as far as we know, does not allow its users to be stored like in like a cloud-based system where like it's all its users' data is stuck in there, because that is incredibly illegal and incredibly invasive. So that's really what it is about. That's the short form of what it is. So whatever they're accusing TikTok of doing, a lot of the time, it wasn't entirely accurate, and those weren't the right questions. Now, if they want to talk about predatory advertising, that is a different conversation entirely. If they want to talk about, algorithms and how they keep you hooked on your screen psychologically, that's a different conversation. But naturally, they don't know how to do that. But anyways, so I actually have for you guys a letter at the time. It was written on March 12th of last year. But here I just want to actually look at some of the laws around TikTok's ban, because I believe going over them is really important to really understand exactly where we're coming from. So I'm just going to skip to the part here where it says, we, the undersigned, free speech, civil rights, and civil liberties organizations strongly urge you to oppose H.R. 7521, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Control Applications Act, because it would violate the First Amendment rights of Americans across the country who rely on TikTok for information, communication, advocacy, entertainment. This bill would functionally ban the distribution of TikTok in the United States and would grant the president broad new powers to ban other social media platforms based on their country of origin. Before addressing substantive concerns, we object to the committee's extremely condensed consideration of this bill, despite this legislation's sweeping First Amendment and government overreach implications. It was marked up just 2 days after it was introduced and is scheduled for a floor vote on suspension less than a week. After that, there was no meaningful opportunity for interested stakeholders to study and address the complex implications of this legislation with members of the House of Representatives. So, essentially, they're not a fan of this bill. And so I actually do have an excerpt from this bill that I want to show you guys. Actually, I have two bills I'm going to show you. So I'll show you this first one, where it's H.R. 7521. And that bill is actually a bit different because it actually really highlights the whole stuff with foreign adversaries and all that. So here, I'm going to show you Section 2, prohibition of foreign and adversary control applications. And so we're not going to go through all of it, but I'm just going to show you the most important part here, which is this highlighted section where it says, providing services to distribute, maintain, or update such foreign adversary controlled application, including any source code of such application by means of a marketplace, including an online mobile application store, through which users within the land or maritime borders of the United States may access, maintain, or update such application, and providing internet hosting services to enable the distribution, maintenance, or updating of such foreign adversary controlled applications for users within the land or maritime borders of the United States. And it says here also, in the case of an application that satisfies the definition of a foreign adversary controlled application pursuant to subsection G3A, beginning on the date that is 180 days after the date of the enactment of this act. And in the case of an application that satisfies the definition of a foreign adversary controlled application pursuant to subsection G3B, beginning on the date that is 180 days from after the date of the relevant determination of the president under such subsection. So, whew, that's a lot of words. But essentially, if it's not bought in the foreign, if a foreign company is not essentially bought within American soil, at least foreign, especially particularly foreign adversaries, not just foreign apps. So like for instance, the European Union could have an app and the United States won't exactly enact this bill, from my understanding. But however, adversaries like China or North Korea and Iran would be under this bill. Was like, yeah, you have to be bought by an American company or you can't operate. But naturally, ByteDance makes way too much money off of TikTok, so they won't sell it so easily. Which is why it's a bit of a, as you call it, a catch-22, where it's like, oh, we don't want you to sell this, but at the same time, we also want to keep it, but we won't operate. So naturally, it'll most likely go within a ban. Now, of course, there's been lots of different takes on this stuff, but another bill I want to show you guys is actually this thing called like TikTok. It's like TikTok versus, it's like what's called TikTok versus something. And my brain's figuring. Oh no, sorry. Terminate TikTok on Campus Act of 2023. So this was something that's actually a bit earlier, but I actually want to detail something from here as well, because it's actually rather important. And so here it says, Section 2, prohibition of federal funds for any institution or higher education not banning use of TikTok on electronic devices. Now, I believe when it comes to federal funds, now I am no lawyer, but I'm assuming, at least it says with higher education, I believe that some devices shouldn't be, government devices should not be on TikTok to begin with. So this is kind of outlining stuff like higher education as well, because you don't want that kind of data even having a chance of getting leaked. But just going to look at it real quickly. So it says here, A, in general, following the 90-day period beginning on the date of enactment of this act, no federal funds may be provided to an institution of higher education unless the institution of higher education has developed and implemented standards and guidelines, which is 1, prohibiting the use of TikTok on electronic devices owned or issued by the institution, and 2, requiring the removal of TikTok from electronic devices owned or issued by the institution. And research exception, the requirements in subsection A shall not apply with respect to research that 1 is conducted by supervised or unauthorized by faculty of an institution of higher education, and 2 pertains to national security, law enforcement, telecommunications, or cybersecurity. So essentially, like it says in the bill, education institutions or higher education, if on their devices, this stuff has to be banned. And so I believe that the US already did that when it comes to government devices, which makes sense because these type of apps, whether it's a Meta app or Instagram, can tend to be invasive. Not so much like stealing your data, which they do, not the way that you guys think it is, but it's just that you don't want to risk any form of higher institution secrets or government secrets even having a chance. So that actually makes sense for the most part. But that's exactly where we are in terms of this bill. So now let's fast forward to what the Supreme Court is saying about this, because this is pretty interesting. But so I have from CBS just some live updates. So I'm just gonna go through the latest ones that I could get. And so here it just says here, so over more than 2 hours in courts on Friday, the justices seemed skeptical of TikTok's arguments. Congress is fine with the expression, they're not fine with a foreign adversary, as they've determined it is gathering all this information about 170 million people who use TikTok, Chief Justice John Roberts said. Several of the justices raised concerns about TikTok's collection of Americans' data and the prospect of China having access to that personal information. Some members of the court seemed less swayed by the government's claim that the law served a compelling national security interest by preventing China from covertly manipulating the content on the app. President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to save the app and could decline to enforce the law when he gets into office on January 20th if the Supreme Court allows it to take effect the day before. And of course, there's more updates about it, but essentially there's people arguing, but that's essentially where we are at right now. So essentially, what do I think about all this? I think it's hard to say, but for the most part, actually, I will say this. When it comes to stuff like these kind of bans, there's one particular reason I'm not entirely in favor of it, and at least in some aspects. I think when it comes to like government devices, that stuff should not be on there in the first place. If you ever worked a government job, there's a reason why there are so many restrictions on so many different websites. They won't even chance it. So that stuff is for like your personal device to be on, not really for your work, if you get my drift. Same thing with like higher education, where you don't want stuff ever getting out. So that's, I can actually get behind. That's a ban that makes sense to me. What I don't like is that this type of ban is not really for the betterment of people, in my opinion. This ban comes across more like we just don't want China in our stuff. And so national security is a bit tricky, because even in the Congress hearing, like even when the TikTok president or CEO was saying like that's not how they collect data, and they're accusing him and interrogating him of collecting said data through different ways, a little out of touch, but yeah, what can you do, old folks in power. Yeah, so it's a weird one. But honestly though, if it comes to like the endangerment of children and all that, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, some of y'all need to parent better. Some of y'all just leave children with iPads and just be like, yep, have fun today, Timmy, have fun on your iPad, or Jamal, or Chuhan, or whatever the hell you name your kids. So what does that say? You're literally leaving them susceptible to algorithms. And by the way, every time you watch any form of video, the system is literally looking at it and said, oh, you want to watch this? Well, guess what? We're going to give you more of what you want to watch. And that's how you get into the whole endless loop of doom scrolling and yada, 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 yada. But you get my drift here. But anyways, so when it comes to stuff like that, it's like, come on. We should put some more onus on parents to be parenting better, in my opinion. So would I want it banned in the way that's been banned right now? Not really. I'm not really in favor of it, because at the end of the day, TikTok should be allowed to exist because, so for me, I believe in competition. So competition is great for markets and all that. And also, for the record, other apps are also stealing data. It's not just TikTok who steals it. Everybody's stealing it. So this comes across as more like, I want more like monopolizing a specific area. And don't forget that TikTok is also very huge in America. And because it's so huge, think about the financial reasons. Guess what? Financial reasons make it so that, oh, wow, that's a huge blow to the market. And also, the American market is very massive, whether you like it or not. It's huge. So, lots of potential in America. So, it getting banned, it's more of a strategic move against, China and ByteDance and all that. It's not really for the American people, in my opinion. It's not done with the greatest of intentions. But, yeah, I feel like I rambled enough about that. But, whew. But anyways, what do you guys think about this whole situation? I'm really curious about your thoughts in the comments below. And yeah, so if you enjoyed this type of video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and follow my socials down in the description below. But that being said, I am done for today. So, ciao.